Let's bring in our panel on all of this. Deneen Borelli is chief political correspondent for Conservative Review and a Fox News contributor. Doug Schoen, a former advisor to President Bill Clinton and Michael Bloomberg, and a Fox News contributor as well. Evan Siegfried is a Republican strategist, the author of GOP GPS, and former press assistant to Rudy Giuliani's presidential campaign. Doug, I want to start with you. You wrote an interesting piece on FoxNews.com. Obviously, you're a Democrat, advisor to Bill Clinton.
Yes.
But you suggest that President Trump has missed an opportunity here.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the real issue is not assessing blame, but bringing the country together. I've suggested an Oval Office address by the president where he goes beyond his remarks and seeks to address the need to heal, to come together, and most importantly, address the substantive agenda: tax reform, infrastructure, and most of all, healthcare reform. We got to move past this, John. We're all Americans, whether I'm a Democrat, whether Deneen and Evan are of different parties. It doesn't matter because we have common interests, common concerns.
Deneen, what do you think about that? I mean, I remember I was in tears after Ronald Reagan addressed the Challenger explosion.
Yeah.
George W. Bush after the 9/11 attacks. Presidential addresses can do an awful lot to put this country back together.
No, sure, and I agree with Doug. And listen, I believe the president should do everything he can to unify our country, and he's going to need backup in order to do so. And unfortunately, you have critics from the left and the right who continue to criticize the president no matter what he says or what he does.
Are you among them?
I'm sorry?
Are you among them? Do you have criticisms of the way the president has handled this?
I agree with his initial statement, John, on Saturday. He condemned all hate and he condemned all violence and all bigotry. And he is getting hit from both sides, whether it's John McCain or John Kasich, or from Democrats like Maxine Waters, who outrageously tweeted that the White House is now the white supremacist house. How can we unify our country when we have leaders who are making these kind of outrageous statements?
What about it? I mean, it's a difficult situation for a president, for any president to handle. What do you make of the way that President Trump has handled this one?
I understand the criticism from the Saturday part, and I don't necessarily agree with it, because there was Antifa, who does have the MO of going out and causing violence. But it was Tuesday that really ripped open a gaping wound in America's heart and soul.
The Trump Tower press conference.
Yes, where he said the people on both sides have very fine people. To all of us, we saw white supremacists coming out for a rally. They say it was about a statue, but all of their flyers advertising them coming out didn't make a single reference to it. It was Unite the Right, and it was saying that it was a neo-Nazi gathering, essentially. And when the president says, it basically implies that there are very fine neo-Nazis and white supremacists, that's painful. I think that when the president did that, that really resonated among Republicans. That's why Bob Corker came out and said there is something wrong. Tim Scott, the only African-American senator for Republicans, he is talking about how the president has not shown moral leadership. We are a nation and a party of morals as Republicans, and we need to show them, and the president has yet to do so.
You had some thoughts in that column, same column, Doug, about saluting or embracing neo-Nazis.
Well, look, let me be very clear. I want to come together, but I agree and associate myself completely with my friend Evan Siegfried's comments about neo-Nazis, about the Tuesday press conference. The idea of unite the right. I'm Jewish. I am compassionate for all victims, oppose white supremacy with all my being. But the reason I wrote the column was to try to take the next step and to heal, which we have to do. I don't in any way want to paper it over. And I would applaud one of our chairman, James Murdoch, for what he's said and done. I think it's important to acknowledge when you have business leaders, both here and more generally, who are coming together supporting the Anti-Defamation League. I'm proud of Fox and what we have done.
And Deneen, one of the tragedies here is that Charlottesville is now always going to be remembered, or at least in the near term, the coming years perhaps, as the site of this horrific event, when it's a very peaceful and beautiful city, home to Thomas Jefferson, who did so much for this country?
Well, it's going to be up to the citizens really to rally together and to push back on what happened there, the hate, the violence, and the absolute unnecessary nonsense that happened in this community. And I think it's very important for all Americans to really come together. The whole world is watching. We're watching these horrific terrorist attacks that have just happened. And so they're watching us being divided on issues that happened in Charlottesville and other issues. We need to come together.
Evan, we just heard Vice President Pence essentially say, let's not let the few divide the many. And that's another point here. These people weren't from Charlottesville, the people who caused so much of the trouble. They came in from all over.
Yes, that is the really...
But relatively few in number.
They came from all over the country because they wanted to use it as an opportunity to heighten their platform. They knew that there was going to be a visceral reaction from the left, and they knew that we would be covering it and talking about it. They did not anticipate the level of violence that came out, because the Charlotte PD does have some explaining to do as to why they didn't interfere or even separate the two groups at the outset. But I think that the president, in order to help heal the nation, he needs to meet with members of the African American community and the Jewish community who are not who have not supported him in the past. People who are going to have tough conversations with him. That's how we begin to heal as a nation. He needs to talk about how he has how his morals and how his feelings and own emotions have been impacted by this. And if we can do that, I think we're going to be a better off nation.
A couple of suggestions from each of you, a suggestion from the two of you as to what the president should do. Doug, you say an Oval Office or presidential address.
Absolutely, should do that ASAP to begin the healing process. Evan is right that the president should meet with those who are opposed and reiterate his opposition to white supremacy and to Nazism in no uncertain terms. All good things, all important.
I think anyone who is trying to equate the president to these hate groups is just off the rails. It makes absolutely no sense. And I think the president does need to address our country, to unify our country. But again, he's going to need the support of those who continue to criticize him.
Deneen Borelli, Doug Schoen, Evan Siegfried.